afternoon. Thank you for being here today as we celebrate the life of Rooney Lee Coffman. Your presence is a testament to the many lives that he touched. Throughout his quiet service, steadfast friendship, and genuine care for others. His legacy is found not only in what he accomplished, but in the countless people he had encouraged, he mentored, and served along the way. Let's begin with a moment of silence to reflect on a life that made a lasting difference.
In the legacy of St. Andrews, I volunteered to read this, and I'm completely dyslexic. So, Rooney Coffman, a beloved mentor, photographer, and historian, and longtime steward of St. Andrews in Laurinburg, North Carolina, passed away peacefully at 3:30 p.m. on July 21st, 2026, at age 79, surrounded with family members. Rooney came to St. Andrews Presbyterian College from Timberville, Virginia, in the fall of '64. He graduated in '68 with a Bachelor's of Arts in Chemistry and a teaching certificate. That same year, he joined the staff of St. Andrews, beginning an extraordinary 57-year career that continued until the university closed in May 2025. As director of logistics and instructor of the science laboratory, Rooney managed the laboratories, the science equipment, supplies, countless details, and supported generations of students and faculty. He also mentored student laboratory assistants, whom he affectionately called Elves, along with his trusted after-hours supervisor known as the A's and B's. Many of these students went on to successful careers in medicine, in science, in education, and in business. In 1974, Rooney and the science faculty established a science Olympiad, which has grown nationwide. He later served for decades as the regional director of the Laurinburg tournament and was honored for his lasting contribution to science education. In 1985, Rooney formally became director of photography at St. Andrews. Over the next 40 years, he documented the people, traditions, milestones, and the beauty of St. Andrews. His photographs became a visual history of the institution. In 2024, the St. Andrews Alumni Council published the book, which is around here, excuse me. The book, Photographic Journey of St. Andrews, that I'm so honored to be part of, and to me, more important than ever. Rooney received numerous honors, including the St. Andrews Distinguished Merit Award, the Dr. Jason L. Painter, I hope I got that right, Distinguished Service Award, and the National Association of Science Materials Manager of the Year Award. He was a member of the American Chemical Society for more than a half a century. Following the university's closing, Rooney helped preserve decades of science, photographic, and historical materials and continued to serve the St. Andrews community as a founding member of the St. Andrews Legacy Foundation, which I'm proud to be a member of. He preceded in death by his mother, Marie Coffman Wetzel. Good, thank you. And his stepfather, Simon Wetzel, and he's survived by his brother, Carl. Where are you at, Carl? You just have to wave your hand. There we go. And that's Dusty Wetzel, Carl Dusty Wetzel, along with generations of students, colleagues, alumni, and friends whose lives he touched. A celebration of Rooney's life is being held today. In lieu of flowers, memorial contributions can be made to the St. Andrew's Legacy Foundation or the Habitat for Humanity of Scotland County. I have a few more words to say because if I can get them out. These are the type of real heroes in the world. The ones in the background, the ones that don't wave a big flag, that we need to keep finding and bring forward and acknowledge while they're alive. And Rooney, if you knew, lots of challenges occurred for Rooney. And when we got to this, he was worried this may not happen. And I said, over my dead body, we're going to make sure that we follow through and do this. And the most meaningful thing for me was to see him autograph his books. It's hard to describe how proud he was of that accomplishment that really honored him. And to me, we can't fill those shoes because that torch has moved on, but we can light another torch in honor of him. And to me, the idea of regret's almost a cop-out. This is the time for us to carry forward what we believe represented Rooney and the memories on our shoulders and help future generations know of all the things he loved about St. Andrews and the legacy of him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Halverson. I am much more accustomed to looking a lot of people with a French root in my face than talking, so wish me luck here. I first met Rooney while teaching for the Governor's School East, which was a 6-week summer program for gifted and talented high school students. It was then hosted by St. Andrews. The jack of all trades and a master of money, Rooney was the videographer, the recording engineer, and the photographer for the entire program. He was quiet and unassuming and spent untold hours making sure that our students have the best photos and recordings possible to document their achievements. And I was rewarded with a friendship, one which was to last for the next 40 plus years. What I hadn't realized at the time was that the friend I had stumbled upon was actually a very private, stoic Renaissance man, and the list of things that held his interest was long. For example, Rooney was keenly interested in architecture and design, particularly that of historic buildings in Virginia and North Carolina. And on more than one occasion, when going out to lunch, I realized Rooney was heading back in the direction I had expected. He'd wait until I noticed and then say enthusiastically, "Let's take a ride. There's this historic property I've been meaning to try and find." He redesigned his own kitchen and had restoration plans for the family home in Virginia, where he and his brother Dusty were raised. He was also a huge fan of mid-century modern design and collected furniture from that era. He was a skilled amateur horticulturalist, and I'm sure many of you connected with St. Andrews can attest to his green thumb. He engaged in genealogical research. He rode a recumbent bicycle all over campus. He studied calligraphy, developed a beautiful cursive hand, which he used to pen elegant messages in the cards he sent on special occasions. Lobbying hands were a particular passion. As a lab chemist, really appreciated glass. He stocked his kitchen to the gills with Pyrex and 1960 Zero Corel, ones with little blue designs on them, and decked his living spaces on a more modest scale with examples of modern art glass. His favorite glass artists were Robert Hill and Hans Frager. Rooney enjoyed dressing well and appreciated high-quality tailored clothing. As one knows, you can't splurge on too many frivolous things on a St. Andrew's salary, and instead he would raid the thrift shops for Paris tweeds, silk ties, and Highland caps. Rooney was also perpetually cold, and over time amassed a vast assortment of Orvis, LOE, and North Face coats to his name, which didn't stop his complaints, at least when Mercury took them. I mentioned a few shops. Rooney was seemingly indefatigable when it came to bargain hunting. And if you're one of those people whose spouse or best friend's eyes sort of glaze over at the mention of going antiquing, Rooney was absolutely the best person to call, and it was so much fun. Likewise, Rooney loved a good road trip and memorably drove one of the two vans full of my exuberant UNC French horn students, taking them from Chapel Hill to Pittsburgh to see the ballet perform Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. And any of you who have ever traveled with undergrads know the necessity of engaging a calm, unflappable driver. And Rooney, bless him, was up to the challenge. I should also mention that he loved musical theater and regularly attended the North Carolina theater productions at Memorial Auditorium in Raleigh. Movies, literature, audiobooks, concerts, the list of things he enjoyed was long. But his two of his biggest loves were cars and cameras. I'll start with the cars. A story that Rooney's brother Dusty told me. And by the way, if there has been any silver lining to this tragic loss for me, is been getting to know Dusty. Like his entire family, he is humble, genuine, has a big heart. And if you're a gearhead in any sense of the word, you want to talk to this man. His knowledge is boundless and the stories are interesting. But I'll go back to the cars. To say that this otherwise reserved individual liked fast cars would be an understatement. And Rooney's first purchase, according to Dusty, upon getting hired at St. Andrews, was a muscle car, a 1969 blue 4-speed Dodge Dart Swinger, which was enticing him from the top rear of a tractor trailer transport, just so conveniently located in the front of the local Dodge dealership. 50 years and many cars later, Rooney, whose dream car was actually a Lamborghini, brought home a beautifully engineered Genesis, which provided him with years of enjoyment and was infinitely more practical than that Lamborghini. But the Dodge Dart was still his first love and is stored in the family home awaiting restoration. Rooney's skill as a photographer is legendary. His awards and years at St. Andrews as their photographer, which culminated in that beautiful book, speak for themselves. I'm going to go off script here for a minute and tell you about the time I came down to see him being awarded that 50-year award that the school gives for, service. And just as he went up to the podium to get this award, somebody told him that a huge tree had fallen through the roof of his house. Looking like a deer in the headlights, he accepted the award, headed back to where I was standing, handed me his camera and said, "Here, take pictures. I gotta leave." Okay. We all looked at it. Mr. Decker repaired the house. His possessions were fine to my family at the moment. But what I started to say was that my ties to Rooney as a photographer weren't all connected to St. Andrews. You see, he frequently worked with my late husband, Jess, also a professional photographer, on photo shoots. And when Jess passed suddenly, Rooney came up to Raleigh and helped me close his photography business down, a process I could not have completed without his extensive knowledge and emotional support and an act of kindness for which I will always be indebted to. But Rooney's greatest interest and deepest love lay with the faculty, staff, and students who St. Andrews. The respect and regard in which he held his beloved Elves and colleagues brought great joy and meaning to his life. And every photograph he took, every talk he gave, and every moment spent in a colleague's office or with a student in the lab became part of the tapestry of his life. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the closing of St. Andrews nearly broke his heart, both figuratively and literally. But he continued to care, and he persisted. Rooney once told me that his guiding principle was to live his life with integrity. That simple rule expanded to encompass a life rich of complexity, one based on fairness, the pursuit of knowledge, and loyalty to those he loved and respected. And we shall miss him.
Hello, everybody. You hear me fine? May I tell you a story? Don't everybody rush to say yes. I want to tell you a story that probably 4 people in the surrounding community know this about Rooney. Little tiny bit of preface. He loved to laugh. And he enjoyed, since he had all of these elves employed, he had, I won't say spies, but he had informants all throughout the school, and sometimes in the lab, he would laugh heartily at some of the performance while I was trying to do things. My name's John Diesel, and I teach biology, and do a little of this, a little of that. Tell stories is one of them. Well, some years ago, I got a call from a lady that was the head of North Carolina Science Olympiad. Rooney has been very active in Science Olympiad. And this lady told me, she said, when you come up to the state meeting, you will, St. Andrews will receive recognition for 40 years ago having established Science Olympiad, which went national and was a big big, huge deal. And so we're going to honor St. Andrews. And President Baldessare is going to come up and receive a plaque, whatever we had for him. And I said, okay, great, nice to know. And she said, well, you have a task. And the task is to get Rooney up to this meeting, up to this date. You have to get him there because he is going to receive something called the Jason Painter Distinguished Service Award. The thing's not even given, but very periodic. So there's not a bunch of them around. But you cannot tell it. You were sworn to secrecy. Now, I like telling and spreading information, so it was difficult. But I did. And I talked to Rooney and I said, we need to go up there because you need to photograph the president receiving all of this award stuff. Yes, that's fine, road trip. So we took off and we went up there and we got there. And this was a big plenary meeting, bunch of maybe 2,500 people involved in the Olympiad, so it's a big room for the people. And they had a nice, wonderful display. Rooney took pictures of that. He told me the whole history of the gymnasium we were in and which basketball players played there. Okay. And so, the presentation to President Baldessare was rather quick and here, do this. And then there was an interlude break of some kind. I can't, for the life of me, remember exactly what it was about, but it was, everybody stopped for a while and talked, reorganized, and moved into an awards type ceremony. And I got to sit on the stage. The stage was very high above the floor. So it was like the first people were about 1, 2, 2.5, 3 tables back. So it was quite a ways. And for some reason, I had some kind of fever, something I didn't feel well, so I was sitting there halfway not paying attention, wondering where I could get some aspirin or something. And I start hearing these voices say, where's Rooney? I don't know. Well, he was here. Where is he now? Okay, that's interesting. And so people went on a look and find, sniper, whatever you want to call it. And Dr. Painter walking around looking. And everyone, where's Rooney? Came and asked me, where's Rooney? Well, so some time passed, not too much, it seemed like eternity, but time passed. And all at once, it's almost like a cloud cleared, and there was Rooney sitting in the audience. Fussing around with his camera and lenses, looking very irritated, which I hadn't seen him look irritated very much in my time. But he was looking very irritated. I don't know whether it was he couldn't get the shot lined up because these people were running all over the place or what. But everybody said, well, okay, there's Rooney. Well, the problem is, to quote one of his favorite phrases, I think, a well-used phrase, the problem is that he's there. award is up here. So I didn't get him from there to here. But his mind is totally focused on getting a shot of this awardee. And finally, someone walked down the stage, because the stage, as I said, was hung up. Walked down the stage, and went over and leaned over, and he looked up. The look on his face was priceless. And for the only time, and now, the only time I've seen the joke was on him, and it wasn't really a joke, because he came completely undone. What do you mean? Go up there. And so he went up and he got this very, very prestigious award. And thanked everybody and sat down. So that's the story I want to tell. Thank you very much. Oh, it's all quiet. I mean, I thought somebody would say, oh, wow. Thank you.
This is the time if some other folks would like to come up and say a few words, please do. I think we can even add, if you want to stand up at your table, you don't want someone passing out. For Rooney. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll be happy to say something. I'm going to be the only one here who taught Rooney the rest of the day. I was chair representing the Elves program for a while, but anyway, Rooney was a sophomore when I knew him. And I challenged something here. I thought Rooney went to Ohio State. Dusty, is that right?
No,
He did.
he's straight here.
Came straight hit the ball, well, I was mistaken. Rooney was here when we built the new science field. He's the key to that damn thing working. It was a remarkable achievement. The wall that had all of the implements in there, that was his baby. And he made it work. And I think Larry said, remember people who saw planes in Australia, he got science on it. Man, it worked. Sure.
Anyone else? Yes.
I first met Rooney in the fall of 1984 whenever I began my studies at St. Andrews. And that was around the time that the official photography staff was forming. So I was one of those kind of fledgling members of that. And those of you who know the layout of the buildings and so forth will probably know a little bit that we started off in a very cramped dark room. It was up in mortgage right outside of logistics. And so we worked through that for a while, but Rooney had the goal of converting one of the chemical prep rooms in the Avenger auditorium to a bigger dark room so that we could process more. We could have multiple people in there at one time processing photos. And we did that. I worked alongside him and kind of became his sidekick. And I remember many times he talked about his thrift hunting. His thrifting, we would take trips to Fayetteville. He loved to go through all the pawn shops and look for a camera and things like that. So stereo equipment. So we did that quite often. Those are some good memories for me of Rooney. Last year, whenever the school suddenly announced that it was closing, I came in and got a crew together and we moved him out of the lab. And that Sunday night, as we were putting the last few items in his car and I was about to drive away, we were talking out by the loading dock. I told him, I said, Rooney, I just want you to understand how much you have meant to me. if I've ever had a mentor in my life, it was you. So, Rooney doesn't really show a lot of emotion all the time, but I think that, I got a little something back from it. I'll always remember that. So, farewell to a great man and contributed a lot to this community.
Anyone else? Yes?
So I met Rooney when I joined the Baptist meeting in 2019, so I did not know nearly as long as some other people here, but one of the biggest things about Rooney that struck me watching the practice was college and love. I remember it was one day, the first Valentine's Day I was there, I was still loud, walked by, had a big vase full of red roses, and they were from Elves, one for each elf. Just that kind of small, conscientious action demonstrated to me was.
Wonderful. Let's see if there's anyone else. Yeah. Bill, you want to say something? Standing anyway, might as well.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll make another question. I'll tell you what. I got to know where you're talking from the very beginning of the longtime. And so it was a safe time here, because it was real. It's going to be a long time until the green start thinking differently about that. I'm sure it probably is. It really was by far the senior employee in 7 years. And this, I got to go to 3 and then all this is ever gets you killed. But I think that all that Rooney saw and all that Rooney took in during that 50+ years. Well, we have a lot of common as well. I mean, he stayed at graduation, was the first to stay. And his wife was like, I did too, great. But it didn't turn out to be more so because, and I think he was a bachelor. The thing about how many kids he how big his family is, and how many people he touched in 30 years, it's absolutely phenomenal. I can't think of anyone in the history of Andrews that I know that touched so many people 3 years. Really, I got to be especially close after April, what was it, 27th last year, whatever it is, let me see, forget it. But we were back and forth. We would exchange a lot of comments and phone calls and things like that. You always need to stump it up when you get phone call. You see the phone, we was bringing in on the phone, but the problem here, some of the big was going on. And we was different. When I think about what's happened in the past year, and how let me become staggering. I think about one simple thing that doesn't get me. And I personally think that the fact that Rooney went back to the archives and contributed all this way that it was to see on social media and all. That's how the great work that the alumni association is trying to do. Really calm, kept us together. And then working from the parents. Yeah, like you said, we talk with people care, and yeah, he did laugh. There are a lot of them that I've never seen. There's an exasperation on that kid. On that Friday, that girl and others came down. He started cooling out. All of Green's legacy. And a lot of stuff here that was people that did similar for years. But in those weeks that followed, we lamented a lot of things. We were, I saw a lot of problems everybody saw. that we saw him clear his head with him. And I checked on him. He was always concerned about it. He was like me. It was pretty his law. And we thought, but somebody can get your whole life. The institution like this. It's such a long. Extremely long. And all of us here were touched by it, and so when we were so many people, some of us are friends, my friend John, but we're gonna have some eat here in the lab. And the arts guy, and if I did, it's gonna be a problem with me. There. He was certainly well known, he had somebody sitting with me here, and I think they said, singing, this guy, pretty common. And I don't think saying it was really down, so there's still love out of it. But I do believe that some folks in the end who figured they would be the people that would show the last year, walk the last walk, or whatever it did. But for all of us, read, pass it. It's the end. God bless you.
I have a positive story to share. I'm going to Calhoun. I'm also from this St. Andrews, we're longer. But first met reading, I was at St. Andrews in the 90s, and but several years ago, I started to try a hobby in that photography. I don't take some pictures, and I was getting some tips from Rooney. And I will travel on campus every so often, take photos of different events. And a few years ago, St. Andrews had a program every Friday for lunch. It was, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically a science session for the students. We talk about some certain topic each week on science. And they would bring faculty in, they would bring local individuals, alumni, etc. They were talking about an hour on a certain topic. And I can't remember what program this event was, but I wanted to video them. And I purchased a gimbal, which I had set up on my phone to try to move my camera tripod. And of course, the reading was there, Dr. Lisa was there, and I purchased a very cheap version of a gimbal, probably Temu or Amazon or something. And so I'm recording the program and trying to work it through my phone from Bluetooth connection, and the gimbal just went berserk and it started spinning extremely fast. I thought my camera would be flying off the mountain, and I can't recreate the laugh, but Ray just got something hit me. And it just started bursting out laughing about my camera, and he never forgot that. Every time I saw afterwards, he had mentioned this cheap gimbal I got from wherever. But it was on a humorous little story. But I think we all had several stories, with Rooney, and just incredible person. He lives in the property. Right?
Anybody else?
I
Yeah.
don't know the size of
Oh, that's right. That's it. Anyone else? Then, please.
I'm Evan Buckley, and one of Rooney's former Elves. But it was really a privilege to have him as a very wonderful associate. I think that I spent most of my time in class if I wasn't in Burndale practicing my weddings. But I was fortunate to have worked with them for work study, and I think I learned just about as much as chemistry and science for as I did from all the lectures there, and it really made a huge difference in going forward in my career. And he had high expectations for us. I remember one time he walked into the just Vegas and handed me this giant binder, which was the instructions for the NMR machine, and he said, "Go calibrate it." I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but after flailing around for a while, I went and found him, and he helped me figure it out. And he was just a really good person. He taught by example, and I think there's very many people who have been touched who have worked with them, and not even worked with them, but been in the lab and kind of helped out when he was there. So, it's been a good experience.
Anyone else? We have a tribute video I was asked to put together. Say something you might have seen online with some others. So unless we have someone else from start, we'll continue it. I have to apologize. I didn't know I was the master of ceremonies, but I'm honored to be here. So we're going to move over to that. That's it. Thanks, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. And then thank you so much. I was able to scrounge a few of his photos and get them together early this morning. So really enjoyed that. If we have closing reflections. Yeah.
I know you've already heard from me, Dusty made it quite clear that you're going to talk about me from him. As I get older, I find sometimes we learn things about people too late. 72 years ago, we started this journey called life. Rooney, being 8 years older than me, was a huge influence in my life. We built about 100 model cars. In 1964, he left home for St. Andrews. He drove a 1946 Studebaker pickup truck, 350 miles each way, at about 50 miles per hour. I went on to a career of building hot rods and professional drag race. I still have that Studebaker. In 1968, he graduated from St. Andrews and forgot to leave. With talking to Pam, Halverson, John, and Jeff, I found I have a brother I don't know. I have heard and read so many great things that he did, from awards and influencing careers to being a good listener and friend. Talking with him when our mom died at 98.5 years old, I learned how much he loved St. Andrews and the people. What's better than getting paid for a job you love? Later, he talked about the closing. He was hurt and devastated. He did not say it, but it was obvious. Even though he lived and worked here for 62 years, he came back to Virginia and Mom every holiday and every school break. To me, that was just one of his outstanding traits. I want to thank Pam, John, and Jeff for immediately reaching out to me to help get through this. I am amazed. He was so many things to so many people. All of this did not come from a science lab. In the months to come, as I try to close his estate, any items, pictures, or whatever he collected pertaining to St. Andrews will be forwarded to the Alumni legacy. I will need contacts. Thank you for coming and for everyone's kindness. Godspeed.
It's wonderful.
As we leave today, I know that I'm going to carry with me the example that Rooney set, and I know you will too. It was a life marked with humility and generosity, curiosity, and faithful service. Thank you for honoring his memory by being here today. After the ceremony, we invite you to stay and spend some time together, wait for the rain to stop for sure, share memories, and enjoy one another's company. Dusty has encouraged us to eat food and take food with you so that, that we can share. But at this time, if you would, please rise if you are able for Bill Cottle's playing of the St. Andrews Alumni.